The latest bus to the Northeast from Texas filled with migrants arrived this morning, this time to Philadelphia.
All have taken up our resources.
From hundreds to more than 50,000 in 2 years.
I not feel safe. We don't feel safe in our houses.
This is the time for Chicago to shine.
The public dollars meant for a crisis flowed to private industry. Billions of dollars poured into opening new shelters and providing care.
We picking and choosing who we take care of.
Dealing with the influx of migrants.
So, what does the new colonialism look like? Well, it's not powerful countries going to weak countries and setting up shop there and taking all their resources and making their citizens second-class citizens. That's played out. This one's a lot more hands-off and a lot more mental. Okay, so we're gonna get a powerful country, let's say like the US, and they're gonna find a third world or a second world country that's not doing as well. Let's say Chile. And they're gonna send somebody, not an ambassador, not a politician, not a businessman. They're gonna send an economist. He's gonna go and he's gonna look at what they have. So let's say certain parts don't have electricity, right? The economist is gonna identify that need. And then they're gonna draw up some graphs, some spreadsheets. They're gonna explain why they need a national electric grid that powers the whole country. They're gonna schedule a meeting with the president of that country, and they're gonna go through the whole spreadsheet of why they need the national electricity grid to power the country. They're gonna tell them, because once you have national electricity throughout the country, number one, it's gonna create more jobs, it's gonna create higher GDP, it's gonna create a better living standard, it's gonna drive tourism, it's gonna do all these things. The president says, you know what? That's great, but we don't have the money to do that. The economist comes back to him and says, well, that's perfect because through the World Bank or the IMF, whoever he's affiliated with, they have a loan prepared for you. Well, that's wonderful, says the president of Chile. So let's say it's $1 billion. The president of Chile is like, you're gonna give me $1 billion loan? Where do I sign? So he signs it, and then boom, there you have it. But one stipulation in that contract he signs is that this national power grid, the infrastructure of it and the actual implementation of it is gonna come from a US company, right? Okay, so the World Bank is giving Chile the money. Let's say they give them a check. And they don't cash the check. What they do is they now send the check to a US company. So that $1 billion goes from the World Bank, Chile signs for it, but they immediately send it to the US company who comes in and they create the infrastructure and they get the city electricity hooked up, running good, perfect, everybody's happy, right? So they got their $1 billion. The World Bank was able to help a struggling nation and Chile has its electricity. However, say a couple years pass and they're not able to meet the loan payment obligations because for whatever reason, the numbers that the economists have predicted, their GDP, aren't meeting the expectations. So they kind of took on the loan with the money they thought they would be making off of the tourism, more jobs, better living standards, right? All the things that he told them they would be making money on to pay the loan, they're not making nearly enough to cover the loan.
The World Bank comes back to them.
They say, well, we can't repo this electricity. You know what? We'll adjust your loan a little bit, but at the next World Economic Forum or any of these big think tanks where countries get to vote, you're just gonna vote with us. It's kind of like The Godfather where he tells them, I might need a favor one day and that day may never come, but when it does come, you're gonna have to do what I tell you. So now, they still owe the money, they just changed the interest rate and basically lowered the payments. And the US has more control over them, right? It might not be the voting. It might be, we wanna put a military base there. It might be, we want your natural resources price lowered. Anything that would benefit the US in order to negotiate that loan payment. Otherwise, you're just gonna default to them. And if you notice, the US has a military base in damn near every country. I don't think that's a coincidence. So I just used Chile for example, but then there's been a lot of different places that this has happened. All right, so now let's look at an alternate scenario. And let's say you have, so the US economist comes to Brazil and he says, you guys need a dam. I think if you have a dam that will help drop your energy cost, it's gonna pay for itself, Same scenario, right? It's just what they think Brazil needs. It could be a dam, it could be new roads, it could be new airports, whatever. But let's just say, for example, they need a dam, right? So they come to the president of the country and they do the whole spreadsheet, the whole pie chart, all the numbers and the figures, how you're gonna make a killing off this. Now, when I did this one, it was $1 billion, that's extremely low. Let's say it's $100 billion loan to make that dam. And through the lessening of your electricity bill, the modernization of your country, you're gonna be able to pay that loan back with some extra cash flow, and you're gonna be sitting pretty good. Everybody's gonna love you. But the president of Brazil is a little more crafty, and he has his own economists run the numbers, and he just doesn't trust the US. So he denies it. Well, that's problematic. We're gonna keep saying, are you sure? You're gonna show them different numbers, and they're gonna show the success that these things have had in other countries that we help. Why not you? But double down, standing on business. I don't want your money. I'm not taking no for an answer. So phase 2 is what's called a jackal. So what's a jackal? A jackal is basically, let's call them a secret agent super spy. Maybe a CIA, MI6 if you're in England, a real high performer. If the president will not cooperate, they're gonna have a series of unfortunate events. Their plane might go down. They might have a car bomb. They might off themselves by shooting themselves in the head twice. So a jackal is just a covert agent that's gonna come in and force your hand. So if you don't wanna get down, you're gonna lay down. Now, let's say the Brazilian president walks around with his own army, right? Special ops. And the jackal can't really get to him like he wants to. Like a Fidel Castro, right? They try to kill him in 1,000 different ways for years. And they just couldn't. So he's fortified. Okay, so the jackal can't do the job. Next step. This is when the big guns come out, right? Now the army's gonna come in. They're gonna force their way and they're gonna take over stuff. Now, obviously you can't just send the army in any country. That's illegal. You have to have probable cause or reason to. But I think we heard they had weapons of mass destruction in Brazil, which is a global threat, and we can't have nukes in Brazil. That's pretty close to us. I think we need to invade Brazil, and I think we need to take over that country. It's not going well. That's just one example. Or they could say, oh, you know what? The Brazilian president is committing war crimes. He's starving his people. He's not doing the right thing. I think we need to invade. Any justification you want, but the army's coming in now, if it's that serious. So now the army comes in, outs the president, and they get their way. Now let me backtrack for a second, because the jackal doesn't necessarily just have to go in and kill the president or threaten him, right? They could also have people in the country that don't like the president fund them to help them overthrow the president. So let's look at Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. He wanted to create an African currency backed by gold, which was not beneficial to the US. So they started a propaganda campaign about all the evil stuff he was doing, and then his opposition in Libya ended up overthrowing him, and next thing you know, he's being beaten down the street and he has a knife stuck up his rear end and dies. Now let's see what Hillary thinks about that.
Land of unconfirmed.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Did it have anything to do with your visit?
No.
Nice Hillary, thanks for the input. Is that the US can get their way without going full-fledged, because it's gonna be hard to get the army in there and find a justification. Right, so they're gonna do everything they can to get them to get the loan. Then the jackals are gonna have a couple different options, a more aggressive one, and then the more passive one of funding opposition, blackmail, things like that to get their way. Okay, so you got these two scenarios, right? So let's go back to the first scenario. So Chile has done this. Not only are they not meeting their GDP needs to be able to fulfill the loans, it's actually dropped the quality of living for their citizens, because they still have to do these loan payments, but now they're trying to do it with the money that they're not making, that they thought they would be making, right? So in order to fulfill these payments, they're probably going to have to up their taxes on the already impoverished citizens, which drives down the quality of life. The US just went in and basically lowered their quality of life. And now what are they going to do? They can go to the US, work a minimum wage job, and be living better than they're living now with higher taxes. Yeah, they got electricity, but they can't afford to eat, then who cares? So they're going to go to the US and they're going to start all over. They might not want to wait for the legal process of getting into the country. They might just want to come in and do what they got to do. So this, as an example, could be things that are driving the migrant crisis that are kind of more nuanced, right? We're just talking about all the illegals that are coming in from all these different countries, but we're not talking about the catalyst for these things, right? Because I believe in immigration, and I believe you're supposed to do it through the right channels. But I have a little bit of empathy for them because their hands being forced by decisions that are being made by other countries, right? And now, mind you, the president of Chile and maybe some higher level friends of his are still going to make a lot of money on this deal because he's going to whisper that he's going to get that loan for electricity. So now his friends and the higher up businessmen that have connections are going to put themselves in position to benefit off that. So if we're going to get a whole bunch of new electricity coming in, he might buy into companies from powerful businessmen, say like a TV broadcasting or internet broadcasting companies. He might make new ones to go along with the new electricity that they're getting, right? A small group of people in Chile are still profiting off it. Right? It's the politicians and government officials who have the inside scoop and are kind of inside trading. They have the businessmen who have the inside scoop and are putting themselves in position to profit off of it. But now we have to look at who's involved with this, because the economic guide didn't just come by itself. They work for places like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, who are supposed to be global monetary systems to kind of prevent crisis, but they're highly influenced by places like the US. So you can kind of say they're an extension of the US. So involved in this plot or scheme, we have the IMF. Let's say we have the World Bank. I'm sure with people like Nancy Pelosi and higher up politicians in the US. That says politicians, whatever. Who else will we have? Let's say you gotta have your jackals, right? So let's say CIA. Obviously higher up army officials. I would call this a conspiracy because a conspiracy is two or more people secretly colluding to have an outcome. So all these groups are profiting off of it, but they're working in unison. The IMF and World Bank are recruiting the people to go explain what's going on. Then you have businessmen, can't forget them, who are going to have the contracts to go do whatever infrastructure that country needs. Politicians, CIA, and Army are all different steps. So in conclusion, the migrant crisis is more of a symptom, and this is the real catalyst for it. But as you can see, these are the most powerful entities on the planet. I don't see it completely stopping the situation. So it's a lot deeper than they're telling you. Now, I don't have the solution for it because I'm obviously not gonna go against any of these people and tell them what to do. And I'm not gonna tell you to just keep the border open, it's our fault. There's a lot of nuance to the story. But explaining the problem in more depth was the goal of this video, so hopefully I did that. And for more information, where I received a lot of this information from was a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. It was actually the person in this situation that was the economist that was going over and doing these things. But he kind of realized he was frauding these people more later into his career, and he became a whistleblower, and then he wrote a book. I'm gonna put it right here if you're interested in checking it out. I think it's a great book. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at Mr. Moquin. Thanks for watching.